Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Critical Thinking Through English Composition. This is the makeup lecture for Chuseok 2025. Today, I'm going to be talking about causal arguments, which is one of the main chapters in the textbook. A lot of the time when people argue, they're discussing causal argument because people really do want to know what causes what. They want to know who they should blame if something goes wrong, and they want to know who to credit if things are going well. Obviously, if something positive is happening, we want to increase that as much as possible. But you can only increase that if you know what is causing it. The same thing, if you notice there's some negative phenomenon occurring, you want to try and put a stop to that. The easiest way to put a stop to it is to find out what is causing it. Now, today we're going to be looking not only at causation, but also at correlation and coincidence, because sometimes things are correlated, which means we can see they are either increasing or decreasing at roughly the same rate or measurable rates that are comparable. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are causally related. Correlation does not necessarily mean causation. This can be a coincidence. And by the end of today's lecture, you should have a very good idea about the difference between correlation and causation. And you should also be familiar with different types of causation. And we'll look at many different interesting examples to help give you a very clear idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's start off with a little warm-up exercise. This is something that I'm going to ask you about at the beginning of our class next week after Chuseok. So I'm going to give you a few phenomena which are correlated, and that means there seems to be some kind of connection between these two phenomena. I'll give you a few different examples. And I want you to think of reasons why the first part may lead to the second part. Why the first part, if it's a cause, may lead to the second part. So let's take a look at a few. And like I said, keep this in mind because I'm going to ask again next week when we meet on campus. Here we go. Students who study alone often get lower grades than those who study as part of a group. People who regularly attend a religious service are, on average, happier than people who do not regularly attend a religious service. Number 3, people with can-do attitudes tend to be wealthier, tend to have more money, greater personal net worth. And finally, if the unemployment rate is high during election season, a leader is less likely to get reelected. Now, these are 4 observable phenomena. Students who do study alone tend to get lower grades than those who study as part of a group. Now, this is a generalization, remember? And we did talk about generalizations in an earlier class. Let's look at this. Students who study alone often get lower grades than those who study as part of a group. If we can say that as a generalization, meaning it is a generally true fact or generally true observation that students who study alone often get lower grades, what could it be that causes those lower grades? What's related? Why would studying alone often result in getting lower grades? What could be a few reasons for that? Same thing. People who regularly attend a religious service are on average happier than those who don't. What could cause that? Are there any explanations that we could think of that might explain why people who regularly attend a religious service are on average happier than those who don't? People with can-do attitudes, I can do it, I'm positive, the power of positive thinking. Is that a risky business venture? Well, I'm going to do it. I'm sure I'll come out on top. Uh, People with that kind of can-do attitude tend to be wealthier than those people who don't have can-do attitudes. What is it about having a can-do attitude that makes people tend to be wealthier? And finally, if the unemployment rate is high during election season, a leader is less likely to be reelected. Well, what are some reasons why that high unemployment rate could lead to a leader being less likely to be reelected? I think a couple of these might be easier to brainstorm some causal relationships than others, but this is what I want you to keep in mind. What is it about that first part that could lead to the second part? What is it about studying it alone? What is it about regularly attending a religious service? What is it about the can-do attitude? What is it about the unemployment rate? Is there anything related to those first parts that might help us get a deeper understanding of why it causes the second part? Why does it? Why do we have this effect in the second part? How does it come from that first part? Okay, and then I want you to think, well, what are some reasons why the first condition might not cause the second? If I go back to the list here, students who study alone often get lower grades than those who study as part of a group, but that's not always true. And why not? People who regularly attend a religious service are on average happier than those who don't. Well, maybe it's not actually attending a religious service that makes them happier. Maybe is there something connected to it? Try and think of something else. The same thing. Is it the can-do attitude that results in the person being wealthier? Or is this a coincidence? Is there another factor outside of this that might result in the person being wealthier that's not related to the can-do attitude? Or is it an outside factor that results not only in the can-do attitude, but also the tendency to be wealthier? The same thing. Is it just the unemployment rate, or is it maybe related to something else, which then results in the leader being less likely to be elected? So at the beginning of our next class, when we meet on campus, I want you to be able to give me a couple of reasons why the first part might explain the second part, but what might be a reason why it might not. So I want you to try to brainstorm some reasons why the first part, the cause, may result in the effect. And is there any reason to believe maybe that it's not that first part that results in the effect? Is there another reason that we're not thinking of? Okay, just to give you an example of how sometimes things can be correlated, but not necessarily causally related. I'd like to share with you a very, very spurious correlation. S-P-U-R-I-O-U-S, spurious. It has been observed that every year in the United States, a certain number of people die from drowning in a swimming pool. And this number increases and decreases over time. It's also been noticed that the number of deaths due to drowning in swimming pools in the United States seems to be correlated with the number of movies that Nicolas Cage makes in a year. The fewer Nicolas Cage movies there are in a year, the fewer people drown in swimming pools. The more Nicolas Cage movies are released in a year, the more people tend to drown in swimming pools. Now, I think this is a very good example of two things that are clearly correlated. We can look at the the years and say, you know what, over the years, when Nicolas Cage has a couple of movies come out, the number of deaths due to drowning in swimming pools goes up. And when he has few or no movies released in a certain year, the number of deaths by drowning in a swimming pool go down. However, nobody would seriously argue that it's the number of movies that Nicolas Cage releases in a year that actually cause the number of drownings. Although these two go up and down according to each other, we can see there's definitely a correlation. The number of Nicolas Cage movies goes up, the number of drownings goes up. The number of Nicolas Cage movies goes down, the number of drownings go down. However, this is actually just a coincidence that we can observe by looking at a certain number of years in order to draw a conclusion. Correlation does not necessarily mean causation. And this is a good example. Just because we can see that two things are correlated does not mean that one necessarily causes the other. Sometimes it's just a coincidence. Okay, by the way, if you're interested in seeing some more very spurious correlations, I've put a link here in the PPT if you'd like to check out some of them. Some very, very bizarre correlations there that are clearly not causally related, but quite humorous to look at. Okay, so if you want to make an argument and say, I think A causes B, first of all, you have to try and start with causation. You have to start with correlation. Are these two things correlated? And by that, I mean, if one of them has a tendency to increase, is there a tendency of the second part also to increase? Or if one goes down, does the other one also goes down? Or if one goes up, does one go down at a relatively similar rate? And vice versa. Is there an observable correlation? So if I go back to the examples of students who study alone tend to get lower grades. So you look at the amount of, if there's an increase in the amount of time that the student is studying alone, there is an observable decrease in their overall test scores. That would be starting with a correlation. You don't necessarily know if it's the studying alone that is causing the lower grades, but there is an observable correlation. Same thing if you talk about the going to a regular religious service, the tendency to be happier than those people who don't. There is an observable correlation. The more regularly you attend a religious service, the greater your overall happiness. So you can actually see an observable correlation there. Regular religious attendance service, regular religious service attendance, and increased levels of happiness. Is it a matter of causation, or is it just a coincidence? Well, the first thing you need to do is just start with the correlation. Are these two correlated? Can we see some kind of correlation? Can we see that these two move in certain ways that they seem to be related? Then we can go to the next step. It's important to be aware of alternative explanations. Like I said, A does not always cause B. Sometimes they are related in other ways. Sometimes it's just a coincidence. If we don't know what causes what, it's important to work towards the most likely explanation while always keeping an open mind for alternatives. Whatever causation you're looking at, you're always going to encounter some complexity and some exceptions. It is very rare for something to cause something else 100% of the time. There are always going to be some kind of exceptions, and things are rarely completely simple. world that we live in. Okay, so starting with correlations, yeah, you want to prove some sort of correlation, whether it's a positive correlation or an inverse correlation. Positive correlation means either prove correlation. A positive correlation is when there's an increase in A and a similar increase in B. By the way, did I put the decrease? No, I didn't. Okay. Quick thing to note here. This slide is somewhat incomplete. A positive correlation, there are two types of positive correlation. If there is an increase in A and it's related to an increase in B, that's a positive correlation. If there is a decrease in A and a similar decrease in B, that is also a positive correlation, because if they're both going up or both going down, that is still positively correlated because they're both going in the same direction. Either they're both increasing or they're both decreasing. An inverse correlation is when one goes up and the other goes down, or one goes down and the other goes up. That would be an inverse correlation, meaning they're going in different directions. So let's take a look at some examples and see what's a positive correlation and what's an inverse correlation. All right. The amount of violence on TV has increased significantly in the last 30 years. The amount of violence in society has also increased at a similar rate. This is a positive correlation. We can see two phenomena: the increase in violence on TV and the increase in violence in society. Because both of these phenomena are increasing, that would be a positive correlation. If the amount of violence on TV decreased and the amount of violence in society also decreased at a similar rate, that would also be a positive correlation. Number two, the university increased the number of security staff last year, and there has been a notable decrease in on-campus crime since that time. So we have two things here over time. We've got the increase in the number of security staff, and we have a decrease in on-campus crime. So as the amount of security staff increased, the amount of crime decreased. This is an inverse correlation. Now, is it a matter of A causing B, or is there a more complicated explanation? That's where we need to look at it in more detail. So here are a few other phenomena which have been observed. And it would be very interesting. I might ask you this I might ask you this next week too when we go back to class, because some of these are such great answers, or such great phenomena to discuss. I love hearing different ideas from students. It might not be enough just to get me or get you to answer some of these online. I might want to ask you these in class too. Like being married and the likelihood of being happy. Do you think there is a positive correlation or a negative correlation? Or listening to Mozart while in the womb and general intelligence levels. You know, like there's the amount of, if a child listens to a lot of Mozart while they're in the womb, is there also an increased chance of greater intelligence? Women's participation in the workforce and a country's economic development. How might those two be related? And finally, graduating from a prestigious school and lifetime earnings. If somebody graduates from a prestigious school, does that equate to greater lifetime earnings? Is there a positive correlation there? Or would there be an inverse correlation? What do you think? Okay, now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of causal relationships. We have to be aware of alternative explanations. Sometimes we see two phenomena and we believe it's very clear A causes B. But the truth is sometimes we're wrong. And sometimes it's not that A causes B. Actually, sometimes we get it completely reversed. Sometimes it's B causes A. I'll just give you a quick example. A long time ago, some people thought that a rooster crowing, or the sound of a rooster crowing, made the sun rise, because every morning there was this observable phenomenon. The rooster would crow, and then the sun would come up. Some people thought, well, obviously, the rooster crowing is what makes the sun come up. Now, what they didn't know was it was the beginning of the sun coming up, the very early dawn, which resulted in the rooster making a crowing sound. People thought that A caused B, the rooster caused the sun to rise, but actually they were wrong. It was the sun rising that caused the rooster to crow. So when you try to figure out what causes what, it's important to try and consider, is it A that causes B, or is it B that causes A? Or is it not only A that causes B? Always be very careful of mono reasoning, like expecting a single reason to explain an effect. Quite often, things are the result of several connected factors. It might not be A that causes B, but it might be three factors that are related to A that cause B. And working together is what actually makes B, not a single one. Or maybe you've got it reversed and it's not A1, 2, and 3 causing B. Maybe it's B1, 2, and 3 that are actually causing A. Or maybe, this is what also happens, what if it's not A or B that cause each other? What if there's a third factor that's outside of them and it's actually causing both? If you want to figure out what's causing what, it's sometimes a little bit more complicated than it might seem. Now, let's take a look at a case where we all know the answer, okay? This has to do with being bitten by a special kind of tropical mosquito and developing yellow fever, which is a tropical disease. Now, if you were able to observe this phenomenon a long time ago with very little scientific knowledge and you didn't know what was causing what, all you knew is that when people were bitten by the specific type of mosquito, there was an increased chance of developing yellow fever. So there's this positive relationship between being bitten by the mosquito and developing yellow fever. You might come up with three possible explanations. Maybe the mosquito carries a virus that causes yellow fever. This would be quite simple. A causes B. The mosquito carries the virus. You get bitten, you get the virus, the disease. Or maybe it's actually B causes A. Maybe people who already have the virus get bitten by this mosquito because maybe there's something, maybe a smell or something that attracts this type of mosquito to those people. Maybe it's this type of mosquito likes to bite people who already have the virus. Oh, so in that case, it's not the mosquito that's causing the virus, but it's the virus that's causing the bite. Or maybe there's something else, a third factor, maybe a C factor. Maybe being in the tropics makes you more likely to develop yellow fever and, quite independently of that, also get bitten by this mosquito. Maybe there's something else in the tropics that is causing both of these things. The reason I show you this is to give you a clear example of three different types of correlation examples or correlation explanations. We've got A causes B, we've got B causes A, and we have C causing both A and B. Now, of course, we know that the mosquito carries the virus that causes yellow fever. This is a clear case of A causing B. But try and think of all the different phenomena in the world where we see two things that are correlated, but we don't necessarily know if it's one thing causing another, or is it that second thing which is causing the first thing, or is there maybe something completely different that is causing both of those things? This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So this is something that I want to go back to for a second. Being married and the likelihood of being happy. If there is a positive correlation between being married and being happy, is it just being married, or are there other related factors that are related to being married that cause the happiness? Or is it just that happy people are more likely to get married? You know, maybe people that aren't happy are less likely to have romantic relationships, therefore less likely to get married. Is it being married causes the happiness, or is being happy one of the factors that causes marriage? Or is there maybe a third factor? Is there something that causes people not only to be happy, but also to get married? Maybe there's like a certain level of self-confidence, for example, that could be responsible for that. You could do this with each of these examples. All right, so yeah, seek the most likely explanation. It's impossible to distracted it for a second. Seek the most likely explanation. It's not always possible to figure out what happens or what is causing something else to 100% certainty. However, it is possible to seek the most likely explanation. And sometimes, that's actually often, it's just the easiest one. What is the most likely explanation? Remember, keep it simple, stupid. A lot of explanations are actually quite simple, and you don't need it to be some sort of a conspiracy theory or a supernatural occurrence. For example, if I say that people that take vitamins tend to be less healthy than people who do not take vitamins, I don't think that it is a conspiracy on behalf of big pharmaceutical companies that put poison into their multivitamin pills, and then, you know, with the collaboration of the government that allows them to market this because they want to reduce the world's population. This is causing people who take vitamins to be less healthy, or maybe there's some magic. Maybe the vitamins have been blessed by a holy person from a certain religion. No, I would say that it's probably more likely that people who take vitamins are not as healthy and they're trying to get better, rather than the vitamins causing the health to deteriorate. Okay. Expect complexity. This is a very important rule because whenever you try to show that A is causing B or B is causing A, it will rarely do so 100% of the time. That's why you'll notice that a lot of arguments will say A often produces B, or it's a major cause of B. Like if we talk about smoking, we could say smoking causes cancer, but it's more accurate to say smoking often causes cancer, or smoking cigarettes is a major cause of cancer. Because there are some people who never smoke but still get cancer. And there are some people that smoke a lot but never get lung cancer. But that doesn't change the fact that smoking is a prime cause of lung cancer. So although the overall situation can be a little bit more complex, A does not always cause B, you're looking to make an accurate generalization, which is why we'll say A often produces B, or A is a major cause of B. Because remember, there's always going to be some complexity, and there will always be some exceptions to pretty much every causal explanation. Okay, and now I'm going to finish off our lecture with three very interesting phenomena, and I would like you to brainstorm two possible examples for each one. And I'll be very interested to see what you come up with. So the first one is people who graduated from college tend to make more money than those who never attended or never graduated from college. Okay, so graduating from college increased money over your lifetime. No diploma, decreased earnings. So this is looking at a positive correlation between these two things: graduating from college and making more money versus never attending or never graduating and making less money. Number two, the stock market correlates with the hemlines of women's skirts and dresses. When the stock market goes up, so do hemlines, meaning when there's a bull market, women tend to wear shorter skirts. When the stock market goes down, when we go into a bear market, then the length of skirts increases, the hemlines go down. What could be two possible explanations for that? Finally, this third one here, Indians, or in Canada, we usually say South Asians to include not only Indians, but also Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and Sri Lankans. Indians who eat foods containing a lot of turmeric have a much lower rate of Alzheimer's disease than do Americans. Most Americans do not eat turmeric, and therefore there's an inverse correlation between developing Alzheimer's and eating turmeric. Now, this is an interesting one. Okay, so Indians eat foods with a lot of turmeric, and they have a much lower rate of Alzheimer's disease. So increase the amount of turmeric and lower the rates of Alzheimer's disease. In America, by comparison, where there's much lower rates of turmeric consumption, we have an increased rate of Alzheimer's disease. Now, how could we explain this correlation? Okay, so what I'd like you to do for homework, I would like you to brainstorm two possible causes for each correlation. We can see these two things are correlated, but is it A causing B? Is it B causing A? Is it actually like one of several factors related to A that is causing B, or vice versa? Or is there a third factor, which is like a C factor that is causing both A and B? Or is it just a coincidence? Are these two things correlated but have no actual causal relationship? So what I'd like you to do is give me two possible causes for each one. And don't say A causes B. I mean, be specific. Tell me what you think causes the second part. Be specific. And then post your ideas on Cyber Campus assignment. This is not an official assignment, like a composition assignment. It's just a participation thing. So please do that for participation. Try to include a variety of causal explanations. I don't want just to see like this causes this causes this like just A causes B, A causes B, A causes no. What I'd like you to do, try to use a variety. Like show me that you understand these different causal relationships. So when I look at your 6 different explanations, 2 for each one, I really want to see that you have maybe got, this one is an A causes B, then you've got a coincidence, you've got a B causes A, you've got an A1, 2, and 3 equals a B, something like that. I want to see that you can show me a number of different causal explanations. Remember, if you don't know necessarily what causes something at first, it's important to brainstorm as many possible explanations as you can, and then you try and pick maybe the most likely one. But it's that brainstorming exercise where you start to get the mental juices going and really start to see how things may or may not be correlated. Okay, on that note, I'm going to finish this lecture. Say thank you, and I'll say thank you very much for watching it. I hope you're enjoying your Chuseok break, and I will see everybody next week. So don't forget to go on Cyber Campus assignments and let me know 2 possible explanations for each of those correlations. So I'm looking for 6 sentences total. All right, thank you very, very much. And let's see whether I can click off of this. My computer's very old and very slow, so this might take longer than I think. Here we go. Yeah, this takes forever. Ah, there we go. Stop recording. Good. Yep. Buffering. I could go back and edit this out, or just let it stay.